Welcome to the US 278 Corridor Improvements public hearing. If we haven't met yet, at one of the many community presentations or public meetings, I am Craig Wynn, the project manager for the South Carolina Department of Transportation. Over the last couple of years, we've been working with you to take this important project through an environmental assessment as part of the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA process. Performing technical analysis, evaluating alternatives based on potential impacts, and your local input. Today we'll be presenting the environmental assessment and the recommended preferred alternative for the project for your input. A copy of this is available for download on the project website and is available for a hard copy. Remember, your feedback is still needed at this point. After listening to you, we will make any necessary adjustments to the recommended preferred alternative so we can provide the improvements that best meet the project's purpose and need while minimizing impacts to the community and natural environment. After exploring all the public hearing materials, please submit an official comment on the project website by email or mail no later than August 22nd, 2021. If at any point you have a question, feel free to email us or give us a call.
This project includes proposed improvements to the US 278 corridor between Bluffton and Hilton Head Island, from Moss Creek Drive to Spanish Wells Road. The eastbound Mackey Creek Bridge, which was originally built in 1956, will reach the end of its operational life in a few years and is scheduled to be replaced. Understanding the local mobility challenge, the project limits were extended to their current locations to allow the project team to look at the corridor as a whole. Potential improvements may also include modifying the remaining 3 bridges and associated roadways, improving performance at key intersections, improving access to Pinckney Island National Wildlife Refuge, and improving access to the C.C. Haig Jr. boat ramp. The purpose of the US 278 Corridor Improvements Project is to address structural deficiencies at the existing eastbound Mackey Creek Bridge and reduce congestion along US 278 from Moss Creek Drive to Spanish Wells Road. The project also includes potential improvements to 3 other bridges located within the study area. The 3 additional bridges to be improved include the westbound Mackey Creek, the eastbound Skull Creek, and the westbound Skull Creek bridges. Improved access to the Pinckney Island National Wildlife Refuge and the C.C. Haig Jr. boat landing is also proposed as part of this project. To meet the purpose and need of the project, the engineering team developed several alternatives called the Preliminary Range of Alternatives. These alternatives were developed as a culmination of ideas from the US 278 project team, local representatives, and most importantly, from you, the public. These preliminary alternatives, in addition to the no-build or do-nothing alternative, have undergone a systematic evaluation process, reducing the preliminary range of alternatives to the reasonable alternatives. Specific criteria were used to evaluate the preliminary range of alternatives, including the projected number of properties that might be impacted, potential impacts to neighborhoods, protected lands, and wetlands. After the preliminary alternatives were narrowed down to the reasonable alternatives, we presented the proposed reasonable alternatives for your input at the second public information meeting based on input we received from you about the importance of reducing community impacts. The 6 proposed reasonable alternatives were revised to 9. These revisions included a revision to Alternative 4 that moved the proposed interchange on Pinckney Island closer to the existing US 278 corridor based on feedback from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. This revision resulted in a new alternative, Alternative 4A. Alternative 5 and Alternative 6 were revised to run south of the existing power line easement across Jenkins Island because of the expense and challenge of relocating this main power source for the island. To keep the spirit of the alternatives that were created based on input viable, these revisions resulted in 2 new alternatives, Alternative 5A and Alternative 6A. all of the proposed reasonable alternatives presented at the public information meeting in fall of 2019, except for Alternative 5, were revised to provide more efficient access to properties on Hog Island and improved maintenance of traffic during construction. To get to the recommended preferred alternative, which we will present today, all the reasonable alternatives were further evaluated based on each alternative's ability to meet the project's purpose and need, the amount of potential impacts to wetlands based on in-the-field calculations, the potential impacts to historic and cultural resources, the potential noise impacts to your community, whether an alternative was consistent with the Pinckney Island National Wildlife Refuge purposes, and potential impacts to properties and the environment, such as essential fish habitat and others. Based on this analysis and input you have provided, SCDOT and the Federal Highway Administration arrived at Alternative 4A as the recommended preferred alternative. Today, we are presenting the recommended preferred alternative 4A for your input. Alternative 4A proposes to replace all 4 existing bridges with one new bridge immediately south of the existing bridges. After exiting from the new bridge, you would continue on to the current US 278 alignment when heading into Hilton Head Island from Bluffton. Additionally, intersection improvements would be made. These will be discussed in greater detail at the traffic intersection station. During our previous public involvement efforts, we often heard that having a lifeline between Hilton Head Island and Bluffton was important to this community. While the existing Mackey Creek and Skull Creek bridges do not meet current seismic or earthquake design standards, Alternative 4A would result in a new 6-lane bridge that would meet the current standards. These new structures could add longevity and increase safety to this singular link between Bluffton and Hilton Head. Additionally, Alternative 4A proposes a new right-in, right-out type of interchange, where turning movements of vehicles are limited to right turns only, with a new connection under US 278 for improved access to the Pinckney Island National Wildlife Refuge and the C.C. Hank Jr. boat landing. The recommended preferred Alternative 4A is the alternative that best meets the purpose and need of the project, while minimizing impacts to the community and environment. Based on the design refinements you see today, the potential relocations for the recommended preferred Alternative 4A were reduced to 0 residential relocations and 2 commercial relocations. We also heard your concerns about traffic and congestion during construction. This alternative would potentially reduce construction time by 1.5 to 2 years as compared to others, because we would be able to construct the new bridge while the current bridges remain in place. A traditional cultural property, or TCP, is a property that is eligible for inclusion in the National Register of Historic Places based on its connection with the cultural practices, traditions, beliefs, lifeways, arts, crafts, or social institutions of a community. The TCP study was completed during the project development process along with the cultural resource studies. The study results indicated the Stoney community should be designated as a TCP because it remains central to the Gullah identity through its long history of Black land ownership. Additionally, it is a cultural gateway to the island and a place for progress, prosperity, and education for the island's Black community. The goal is to provide community enhancement options to preserve and highlight the history of the Stoney community. To do this, the project team met with the Stoney community, Gullah stakeholders, the town of Hilton Head Island, and Beaufort County on multiple occasions to discuss the project and potential community enhancement opportunities. The enhancements include signage to bring awareness of the Stoney community, an open-air pavilion to highlight the history of the Stoney community and other Gullah neighborhoods on the island, placemaking improvements such as street and multi-use path lighting, and an online interactive map highlighting the history of the Stoney community. Your
feedback is an integral part of the alternatives analysis process. It has helped shape the project from the beginning by providing ideas for new alignments to extending the project study area and further evaluating intersection operations for a better flow of traffic. We encourage you to submit a comment on our project website by email or mail no later than August 22nd, 2021. You can also provide a verbal comment by calling the number on the screen. More information about engaging with the project team, including any in-person opportunities, can be found in the comment section. Please stay in touch by following us on social media, visiting the project website, and signing up for our newsletter. Thank you again for your time and insight.